South Korea is one of the most fascinating countries on the planet. From famine to miracle, it now faces the threat of demographic collapse. Today, we'll take a closer look at South Korea's remarkable story. Is it truly the dreamland it's marketed as, or a nation grappling with harsh realities and an uncertain future? In the 1950s, ravaged by World War II and the Korean War, South Korea was desperately poor. The Korean War, lasting 3 years, claimed millions of lives, shattered the economy, and plunged the population into misery. By the mid-1950s, South Korea's per capita income was under $100, on par with the world's poorest African nations. Basic needs depended on foreign aid. For example, school children relied on donated powdered milk for lunch. During this time, North Korea, also involved in the Korean War, had a different economic structure, focusing on centralized socialist policies. In 1960, North Korea's per capita income, adjusted for purchasing power parity, was roughly double that of South Korea. While North Korea pursued a distinct ideological path, South Korea was a wreck awaiting reconstruction. But this picture would change dramatically over the next few decades. After the Korean War, South Korea depended heavily on foreign aid. In the 1950s, 70% of imports were funded by such aid. Meanwhile, North Korea, supported by the Soviet Union and China, focused on its own industrial and infrastructure projects. South Korea's relationship with the US, however, was unique. Between 1946 and 1976, it received about $12.5 billion in aid, equivalent to roughly $120 billion today. Adjusted for inflation. In 1961, General Park Chung-hee seized power through a coup and launched an export-driven industrialization plan. The country lacked capital. Its electricity production was just 2% of the US's. To address this, South Korea turned to foreign loans rather than direct investment. Sending troops to the Vietnam War earned further U.S. support, with $5 billion of the $12.5 billion aid. Coming from 1965 to 1973, the U.S. funded the modernization of South Korea's military and awarded contracts to Korean companies. In 1965, Park's regime normalized ties with Japan, securing $300 million in grants, $200 million in loans, and $300 million in investments from Japanese firms, a total of about $1 billion, 4 times South Korea's annual export revenue of $250 million. This funded massive industrial projects, laying the foundation for a shift from an agrarian to an industrial economy by the late 1960s. North Korea, meanwhile, focused on heavy industry under its socialist model, but lagged in exports compared to South Korea. From the early 1960s, South Korea's development strategy centered on chaebol large family-owned conglomerates. Here's where the story gets exciting. Folks, we're stepping into South Korea's transformation. In 1962, the first 5-year plan began, with the state supporting major companies in key sectors. Park's regime, after arresting some wealthy business figures on corruption charges, released them and invited collaboration under a guided capitalism model. Distinct from classic capitalism, the state provided interest loans and incentives, contingent on meeting targets. In return, chaebols made bold investments in heavy industries like petrochemicals, steel, automotive, and electronics. Who are these chaebols? Familiar names: Samsung, Hyundai, LG, and SK Group, now global giants, surged during this period. Hyundai led in road construction and automotive, while Samsung excelled in electronics and shipbuilding, following state plans. This public-private partnership turned South Korea into one of Asia's 4 tigers in a few decades. The economy, once agrarian with low technological know-how, became industry-focused as chaebols imported and applied new technologies. Let's look at some stats. In 1961, South Korea's exports were just 10% of North Korea's. By 1980, they were 4.5 times higher. But there was a downside. The economy became heavily concentrated in a few families. Today, the top 4, chaebols, Samsung, SK Hyundai, and LG, account for over 40% of South Korea's GDP, creating significant inequality. In North Korea, state-controlled enterprises dominated, but economic growth and exports lagged far behind. South Korea not only caught up but surpassed North Korea's per capita income by 6% in the 1980s. The 1980s marked South Korea's democratization and economic acceleration. The 1988 Seoul Olympics put the country on the global stage. No longer a middle-income nation, South Korea became a powerhouse exporting industrial goods. In 1996, it joined the OECD, earning developed economy status. Consider this: in 1962, per capita income was $100. By 1989, it hit $5,400. And by 2006, it crossed $20,000. In one generation, incomes rose 100-fold. Imagine your grandparent earning $100 while you earn $20,000 in the same economy. That's the Korean miracle. By the 2010s, South Korea was among the world's top 10 economies. Its export-driven model pushed trade volume past $1 trillion in 2011, joining global trade giants. But a slowdown, even decline, began. This wasn't just economic but societal. The miracle darkened. South Korea wasn't the same. The biggest issue is record low fertility rates. South Korea's total fertility rate of rich children per woman dropped to 0.78 in 2022, a world record, and fell further to 0.72 in 2023. For a population to sustain itself, 2.1 is needed. This means South Korea isn't just stagnating, heading toward extinction. In the 1960s, the rate was 6. Now it's below 1. Even aging Japan has a rate of 1.3, double South Korea's. That's not all. Economic prosperity is a dream for the young. Housing prices in Seoul are astronomical. Buying an average home requires saving one's entire income for 15 years. Nearly 80% of people in their 20s and 30s. Suicide rates are another crisis. South Korea leads the OECD, with 24 deaths per 100,000 people in 2020, about 13,000 annually, over twice the OECD average. Lithuania, second, is at 18.5. Intense academic and work pressure, loneliness, and depression fuel a sense of societal collapse. The government is acting. Cash grants, tax incentives, and free childcare aim to boost birth rates. Discussions on shorter work hours and housing loan regulations are ongoing. But the trends persist: falling births, rising costs, and growing despair among the young. The population began shrinking in 2020. UN projections suggest South Korea's 50 million people could have to 25 million by the late 2080s, possibly dropping to 15 to 20 million later. In conclusion, South Korea rose from post-war ruin to an economic triumph, but now fights for survival. Corruption scandals, tax amnesties, and a shaken justice system are separate issues. This lesser-known story of a key East Asian nation is one to ponder. Thanks for reading. If you enjoyed this, subscribe, leave a comment, or like to share your thoughts. Take care, and see you in the next piece. Stay well.